this part. Today we're gonna talk about Active Directory and how to install the Active Directory. So far, we have learned how to set the IP address on Windows Server and also on Windows 10. So I just redo those steps. So basically, um, if you have set up your IP address, now my IP address basically is DHCP, I think. So I'm gonna set this server. So that's my Windows server 192.168. I think one something. Put that one as one. And also this preferred DNS should be set as 192.168.1.1, or you can put it as 127.0.0.1. Both of them are correct. So as I said, if you want to have internet, usually you put the gateway address here, your router information, IP address here, so then you can reach to the internet. My goal is just set up the what's that DNS for this part. Also, look, this one, your Windows 10. Basically, when Windows 10 wants to talk with the Windows Server, because previous session you install a DHCP, you should receive an IP address through DHCP. Um, so what I'm gonna do now, because I don't have a DHCP now, so I'm gonna set for this step quickly. I'm gonna set the DHCP server. So it's asking, do you want to continue? Yes, yes, and then I'm gonna install DHCP. That was something that we had in previous session. Just reviewing whatever we have done so far. And also, because we are creating custom network, um, also we can do this part, like your network connection should be under custom. So this is like NAT, but previous session also mentioned that you can put it part of this VM net to create your custom network. So because these are like between 9 to 19 is available, also between 2 to 7 available, I can select one of these network. For example, I'm going to select VM19, the last one. So also put the Windows 10 also as VM19. So then I make sure that, okay, these two machines are in custom network and they're talking to each other. So if you complete your DHCP installation, then you should have received an IP address from DHCP server. Um, oh, I haven't set my basically my pool here. So then I go here and under DHCP manager. So then there should be basically your scope. So I create a new scope. So like I call it my network or my local network. And then that's a starting IP address. For example, I'm gonna start from 110 and it to 192.168.120. So the first IP address is 110. So then here exclusion that I talk, list time, you want to enable, yes, default. So I put the 192.168.1.1 as a gateway. So that's like my Windows server. Also, I put this one, 192.168.1.1 also as a DNS server, which is very important. That means that whatever you have um, under client, 1.1 should be your Windows, should map to your Windows server. So if you look at here now, if I shut that, make this one disable and enable, I should receive an IP address from DHCP server. So look, IP address is 110, gateway is 1.1, DNS also is 1.1, which is very important. DNS, that means that is receiving from the server. So this is something that we had in the previous session. So I'm gonna add a role now. I wanna install Active Directory. So keep in mind, Active Directory, again, you should have those steps. So if you haven't done this part, like changing your server, setting the IP address, and changing administrative password, because you should know administrative password. Otherwise, you lock yourself when you install Active Directory. So I'm going to install Active Directory now because I know, for example, my password, administrator password, I set the IP address. I haven't changed the computer name, but it's okay. So the Active Directory that we are setting, there are many services like certificate services, federation services, lightweight services. So what we are doing for managing the users is Active Directory, the second one, the Active Directory Domain Services, ADDS, stand for ADDS. And next, and then next. So you install Active Directory. If you have um, Azure, so like cloud service, then there is like a here connection that you can make a connection between your Active Directory on-prem with cloud services. So one of the things that we need to understand here, remember that also we had for domain services, like we had two parts. For example, domain can be talibi.ca, or I don't know, it can be anyname.com, or anyname.in. The extension of the domain names, as we talk, is a top level domain, and then we had a name. So then we have like subdomains, and it can be um, a root name servers, right? So uh, when you reach to this step, is asking to promote this server. So I'm gonna promote this Active Directory server. So we have three options here. Added domain controller to existing domain. That means that there is like a domain controller before you install, and you wanna add another domain controller. But we haven't installed any domain controller. Add a new domain to existing forest. So like a parent and child. So you want to add to like existing forest that you had, you want to add a new domain. Again, we haven't created forest. So that's the third option is fit us, like that's a option that we select. So that means that you create a forest. Basically, forest is like a domain name that you're creating for the first time. And after that, it is like this. If you have many domain controller, they can have like this scenario. So for example, let's say I have here talibi.ca, right? And then I can have another child for, this is the first time I'm creating that one. So that's my domain name that it has two parts. One of them is like this one is the extension, and this one is the name that I'm creating for that one. I mentioned that this extension depends on the country. Sometimes it's a commercial extension. So we had that one before. Um, so here, this one is the parent that I'm creating. So if we want to add another child, so this is like a child under this parent. So because I haven't created this one before, so that's the first time I'm creating that forest. So that's why I'm selecting this option. So here is asking for root domain name. So then you should put a name, and your name basically should have two sections. Look, name and the extension. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna put, for example, because I wanna put the unique name, so I'm gonna put my name, Hamid dot, for example, local, because I'm working in the lab. So It's gonna be like this. So if I come back here, put here hamid.local. Next. So here is the functionality level. You know that we have different version of the Windows Server. So Windows Server 2016, 2008. That means that if you put this one as a 2008, 2008, and after that is going to be supported. Functional level, forest functional level, domain functional level. I'm going to put that as 2016 because you know that this is 2022 Windows Server. I'm installing, for example, the domain controller for that one. If you want to enable DNS for this domain controller, you can mark this option. And for your domain controller DSRM, your directory service restore mode, if you want to restore, you should set the password. So this is like, should be a very strong password that you're putting for this step. Next. So that's a delegation service that I have. I don't have it under this zone. So next, net BIOS name. Net BIOS name is like a nickname that you wanna call your domain controller. Uh, for example, if I call Hamid in the network, and then you can reach to this domain controller. So that's okay. If you want to change to anything else, you can put it here. I'm gonna accept that one as default net BIOS domain name. Pass is the database log, sysvol. That's important files that we have for Active Directory. NTDS, database and log files. Sysvol is the user information. So if you want to save it somewhere else, you can select. By default, you use a C Windows file. I'm going to select that pass. And then review options. And then you can click next and install your Active Directory domain controller. Yeah. So this is like a prerequisite check. If everything is okay, you can install it. Because we are doing through the lab, I highly recommend do not update your Windows Server. That's just a test lab, right? So it's not a real environment to update your Windows Server because it takes time to update to get all patches. Well, if you don't get one of the patches, maybe during the Active Directory installation service, you get error, and sometimes it's saying that, okay, you haven't installed this patch and you should get this patch. So it's gonna be very hard for you. So I highly recommend just keep going with the like without updating your Windows Server. You see that by when you install the Windows Server, it will be sign out and probably restart your operating system. Look, you're restarting. Now, what's gonna happen? You know, previous time that we had Windows Server, um, oops, it was through the group work group, right? So now is your Windows Server is gonna be through the domain controller. So domain controller, that means that you can manage the users. You can, for example, you can say to the clients, okay, this client should have, for example, shouldn't have a control panel, shouldn't have a taskbar. The background, you can change the background of the this Windows, and also you can limit specific items on the client. So every policies are coming from the Windows Server. Also, you can have multiple user, manage multiple user. That means that they can log in. What you have seen, you log into your machine. Here is the same. Like you can, different users can log into the same machine with different usernames. So this is like something that we can use it by Windows Server and Active Directory. We will see some other features like how to change the background. Also, there is a lab um, for this section. Basically, on this lab, I'm asking you, okay, to create the Active Directory, then join this Windows 10 to the Active Directory and add some option to group policy. But we haven't learned group policy now. We're gonna learn later, maybe next session. This session is only installing Active Directory, join this client to this server. So let's now is booting the operating system. Okay, there you go. So when you want to log in from here, look now, that's the domain name backslash username. Usually we have two types of, when you want to write your username, we have two types. Sometimes you put it like this, domain name, and then backslash to your username. And sometimes you can, the newest version is like this. So you put the username @ domain name. So in this case, if I wanted to do it in the second format, it's going to be like administrator @Hamid.local. But both of them are the same. You know, if you do this first format or the second format, you see that the first format is shown here is the same. So I want to just mention that, okay, you can also do the second format as well. So then here for login, you need to enter the administrator password. That's your local password. So I put that one. Now I can log. Basically, I think for this Windows version, I put it as A capital BC at 1234. So that's now is not work group. Look, if you just look, if I look at your local server, you see that it's domain controller now. Is Hamid.local, and this is your server information. And you have ADDS. So this ADDS basically it shows the users also. So if uh, you can reach it from here, Active Directory users and computers, or you can reach it from tools, Active Directory users and computer. Both of them are correct. So then here shows that your domain name is Hamid.local, and there are many things here. So like this is the most powerful user in domain controller, administrator. If you want to create a new user, you can create it from here. For example, I'm gonna create new user. Let's say this user is, for example, another name, not my name, John. Um, what is that last name? My last name, John Talebi, right? Talebi, and then this is login name. That's your account name. For example, J. Talebi, for example. Or you can put it like this, J. Talebi. So if you want to log in, you should use this one, not your first name, last name. First name, last name is show up when you log into the system. And next, here there are some options that when you create for first time. Uh, so you can allow user to change the password when they log on for the first time. I don't want to allow your user to change the password, or user cannot change the password. This is also is a restriction. Password never expired. This is a very good option for the lab because I don't want to expire, but in real environment, usually we allow to password to be expired. and account is disabled, it's gonna disable the account. I put the password for this one also. This password should be very strong. Again, you should have like one character as uppercase, and then it should be at least 8 character. So you see that I created my username. So that's my first username that I have here. All right. So this is my Windows server. Now I'm going to come back to my Windows 10. So this Windows 10, if you look at your right click here under system and scroll down, you see here, if your desktop is this one, you can change or rename this Windows 10 also. So if you look at advanced system settings and computer name, so look here, this one is work group. It's not part of this domain controller, but there is option here. You can change it to domain controller. So I'm gonna put my domain name here. For example, hamid.local. So I click enter, then is asking me, what is the administrator password? So I put administrator here and the password of administrator. And then look, now welcome to hamid.local domain name. So then it will restart Windows 10. So that means that Windows 10 no longer, so it's here, restart now, no longer is gonna be part of workgroup and is gonna join the Active Directory. So next, um, next reboot is gonna be like, it's gonna ask you for username password. So because I have already created this John Talebi, so I'm gonna put j.talebi as a username and the password, and then log in to the system to show that the password, username password is exactly the same that you have defined on the Windows server. Look, now this is the first page. Is this student is your local user. So you click on other user, and then you see that Hamid. Now you have two options. So you can put the old style Hamid /username j.talebi like this, and then put the password. Also, if you write like this j.talebi @Hamid, and then put the password, that one also is correct. So then log in. Look, now you are logging as this user for the first time. So this user information, it comes from the Active Directory. So that means that now your Windows 10 is connected to the Windows server. So that means that this Windows basically following whatever you policy push from Windows server. So to verify, look, now again, this is the user, John Talebi, right? And just show you something. When you are part of domain controller, so show you that, and cpa.cpl, look, now I want to change the IP address. First of all, it shows me that I'm part of hamid.local. Look, now I want to go to properties. It doesn't allow me to change the network connection information. Why? Because I am a simple user. I am not an administrator. So look at here. If you look at member of, it's saying that John Talebi is domain controller user. But if you look at administrator now, administrator is part of administrators, and this administrator user or domain admin, they are very powerful. They can add user, they can remove that, they can change the configuration. So because this user is a simple user, it cannot change the configuration. That means that you cannot change your IP configuration under this user.